Welcome, the anointed ones. Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are the ones tightening the chains around your soul. Did you know that over 70% of toxic relationships involve subtle emotional manipulation so expertly disguised that victims often don't realize they're trapped until years later? Think about that. Years of living in a cage you didn't even know existed. Now imagine this. You're the chosen one in your family, but not in the magical Harry Potter kind of way. No wands or castles here. Instead, your chosen one status feels more like being the designated scapegoat, the family fixer, or the emotional punching bag. They didn't pick you because they love you more. They chose you because you were their biggest threat. But here's where it gets good. They underestimated you, the cage they built, the guilt they weaponized, and the lies they fed you. They were all designed to keep you small, compliant, and blind. But now you're starting to see through the cracks. You're shaking the bars, and they're panicking. Why? Because they know something you're just beginning to realize. Once you escape, there's no going back. And the best part? The same shady family that locked you in will be the first to crumble when you break free. Let's talk about why they're spiraling and what makes your escape not just a rebellion, but a revolution. At number 1, chosen for what? The hidden gift that made you their target. The truth is, you were never an ordinary part of the family. You stood out in ways they couldn't fully understand, but they could sense it. Whether it was your ability to question things that didn't add up, your natural drive to do better, or the way you seemed to see through people's facades, you carried something they didn't. They saw it before you ever could, and it scared them. You weren't just a child to them. You were a mirror, reflecting their flaws, secrets, and insecurities. They knew that if your potential ever went untamed, it could expose everything they worked so hard to hide. That's why they chose you. Not because you were the easiest to love or guide, but because you were the hardest to control. That's where the cage came in. The cage wasn't made of bars or chains. It was built with criticism, subtle dismissals, and the constant reminder that you were too much or not enough. They created a world where you doubted your instincts and second-guessed your own brilliance. Your independence was framed as rebellion, your strength as arrogance, and your intuition as paranoia. Every time you tried to stretch your wings, they clipped them, not out of care, but out of fear of what you might uncover. It wasn't just about keeping you small, it was about protecting themselves. Your light made their shadows unbearable. So they did everything they could to convince you that you were ordinary or broken, when in reality, you were extraordinary. They weren't prepared for the day you'd finally see it. And once you did, the entire dynamic shifted. You became what they feared most, someone who could no longer be controlled. Number 2, the cage was never just physical. The cage they built around you wasn't something you could see or touch. It was a prison of the mind, crafted with precision and hidden behind the guise of love and loyalty. There were no locks or keys, only subtle reminders that you owed them something, that without them, you were nothing. It wasn't just what they said. It was how they said it, the tone, the timing. Every word carefully placed to plant seeds of doubt and guilt in your mind. They didn't need to use force. Why would they, when they could convince you to stay willingly? They created rules without ever calling them rules. You don't speak up too much, you don't disagree, and you certainly don't ask too many questions. If you did, the consequences weren't punishments but something worse, disappointment. The sighs, the cold shoulders, the unspoken tension in the room. You learned early on that their approval was conditional and fleeting, so you shrank yourself to fit into their comfort zone. But the cage wasn't just about keeping you in, it was about keeping you blind. They surrounded you with half-truths and manipulations, twisting reality until you couldn't tell the difference between your own thoughts and their planted ones. When you started questioning things, they gaslit you, making you feel like the problem was in your head. Why are you so sensitive, they'd ask, as if your reactions were the issue, not their behavior. The brilliance of the cage was how invisible it was. You didn't even realize you were trapped until you started dreaming of a life beyond their control. And once you saw the cage for what it was, there was no unseeing it. That's when they began to panic, because their carefully constructed illusion was falling apart. Number 3, Why they panicked. Control was their lifeline. When you start breaking free, their panic is immediate and undeniable. It's not just about losing control over you, it's about losing control over everything. You were their anchor, the person they could manipulate to stabilize their chaotic emotions and dysfunction. Without you playing your part, their entire system starts to collapse. They've spent years creating a reality where they're the center of your world. You leaving threatens that fragile structure. Their control over you wasn't just power, it was survival. Every time they chipped away at your confidence, guilt tripped you into staying, or made you second-guess your choices, it wasn't just about keeping you small. It was about feeding their own sense of superiority. As long as you were under their thumb, they didn't have to look in the mirror. Your obedience allowed them to avoid their own flaws and failures. When you step out of their reach, they're left exposed. Without you to manipulate or blame, they're forced to confront the parts of themselves they've been running from. That's why they panic. It's not because they care about you in the way they claim, it's because they don't know how to exist without the power dynamic they've carefully maintained. But there's another layer to their panic: fear of exposure. Deep down, they know their behavior doesn't hold up under scrutiny. They've built a web of lies and justifications to protect their actions, and your escape threatens to unravel it all. If you thrive without them, their entire narrative collapses. It proves you never needed them the way they claimed you did. That's the real nightmare for them. Not just losing you, but losing the image of control they've built around you. And that's why they fight so hard to keep you from leaving. Number 4, shady tactics. The mask they wore to keep you blind. Your family didn't need to use chains to keep you in line. They used something far more insidious: emotional camouflage. They wore masks of concern and love, presenting themselves as your protectors while quietly ensuring you never questioned their control. The illusion was so well crafted that you believed their manipulation was care, their interference was guidance, and their dominance was sacrifice. They told you they were doing everything for your benefit. The sacrifices they claimed to make, giving up time, money, or opportunities, weren't genuine acts of selflessness. They were currency in the bank of guilt, meant to make you feel forever indebted. Every time you thought about stepping out of line, they'd remind you, subtly or not, of all they'd done for you. After everything I've done, this is how you repay me? Those words were daggers designed to cut deep, keeping you tethered to their version of reality. Even their kindness came with conditions. Compliments were rare and only offered when they served a purpose, usually to reel you back in after they sensed you pulling away. They weren't above playing the victim either. When their authority was questioned, suddenly, they were the ones being hurt. "How could you think I don't have your best interests at heart?" they'd say, as if your independence was an attack on their very existence. The most dangerous tactic, though, was their ability to frame escape as betrayal. They made sure you believed that choosing yourself meant abandoning them. They spun stories of loyalty and family bonds so tightly that breaking free felt like ripping out a piece of your own identity. It wasn't just about controlling you, it was about making sure you didn't even want to leave. And that was the mask's cruelest trick. Number 5, escaping isn't enough: how they weaponize freedom against you. Number 6, the fear you'll prove them wrong. Their fear isn't just about losing you, it's about losing the story they've carefully built around you. For years, they've sold the idea that you needed them. They convinced you and everyone around them that without their guidance, you'd fail. You were too naive, too reckless, or too weak to make it on your own. At least, that's the narrative they wanted you to believe. It wasn't just control they wanted, it was validation that they were right, that their grip on you was justified. But now you're slipping through their fingers, and that terrifies them. Why? Because every step you take towards success, happiness, or freedom is a direct contradiction to their claims. If you thrive without them, it shatters the lie that they were essential to your survival. It exposes the truth: they weren't helping you grow, they were holding you back. This fear drives their desperation. They'll try to undermine your confidence with snide remarks disguised as concern. "Are you sure you can handle that? They'll dismiss your wins with backhanded compliments. I guess you got lucky this time. And when those tactics fail, they'll spread rumors or twist the story to make your independence seem like rebellion, selfishness, or even cruelty. What they dread most isn't just your success. It's the spotlight your success shines on their failures. If you can stand tall on your own, it forces others to question why they ever tried to keep you down. It forces them to face the truth. Their control was never about helping you. It was about hiding their own insecurities. And with every achievement you make, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. Number 7, your role as their scapegoat was always strategic. Being the scapegoat in your family wasn't random. It was deliberate and strategic. You were the chosen one, but not in a way that honored you. Instead, they chose you to carry the weight of everything they refused to confront in themselves. Their flaws, their mistakes, their dysfunction, they dumped it all onto you because it was easier than facing the truth. You weren't the problem, but they needed you to believe you were. Every time something went wrong, you were the target. They painted you as the difficult one, the troublemaker, the one who just couldn't get it right. When tensions flared, it was your fault. When things fell apart, you were to blame. This wasn't an accident. By making you the problem, they diverted attention away from their own chaos. It was a deflection tactic, pure and simple, a way to protect themselves from scrutiny. This role wasn't just about silencing you, it was about control. If they could convince you that you were broken, you'd spend all your energy trying to fix yourself instead of questioning them. You'd focus on earning their approval, proving your worth, and avoiding conflict. Meanwhile, they got to avoid accountability, keep their dysfunction hidden, and maintain their grip on the narrative. But then you started to see through it. You realized their accusations weren't about you. They were reflections of their own fears and failures. And now, as you step away from the scapegoat role, they're left exposed. Your absence forces them to confront the dysfunction they've buried for so long. Without you to absorb the blame, the cracks in their foundation become impossible to ignore. Your escape doesn't just free you, it forces them to face the truths they've been running from. And that's what terrifies them the most. Number 8, the chosen one. Isn't the favorite, it's the threat. Being the chosen one in a toxic family isn't the honor it might sound like. It's a burden. You weren't chosen because they adored you or saw you as special in a loving way. You were chosen because you were a threat to their carefully constructed illusions. You had the audacity to notice the cracks in their facade, the courage to ask the questions no one else would, and the clarity to see things for what they truly were. That made you dangerous. They recognized your strength early on, even if you didn't. They saw your sharp mind, your resilience, and your ability to question what others blindly accepted. Instead of celebrating these traits, they decided to crush them. To maintain their control, they needed to turn your strengths into weaknesses. Your curiosity was labeled as defiance. Your independence became selfishness. Your desire for honesty was branded as being too much. They worked overtime to convince you that your best qualities were flaws. You weren't chosen to be nurtured. You were chosen to be suppressed. They saw in you the power to expose their lies, dismantle their manipulations, and disrupt the narrative they depended on. So they made you their focus, not to build you up, but to break you down. Every criticism, every guilt trip, every subtle jab was a calculated move to keep you questioning yourself instead of them. But here's the irony. Their relentless efforts to suppress you only sharpened your instincts. It taught you to see through their games, to understand manipulation, and to stand strong in the face of opposition. They chose you because they feared your potential, but in trying to extinguish your light, they unintentionally made you even stronger. Now, their worst fear is coming true. You're stepping into your power, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. Number 9, freedom is lonelier than you thought. Escaping a toxic family feels like breaking free, but no one warns you about the loneliness that comes with it. Freedom isn't immediate happiness. It's a strange and isolating place, especially when the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones you're running from. The shady ones don't just let you walk away. They work behind the scenes, spinning stories, playing the victim, and turning others against you. They ensure that when you finally leave, you're not just leaving them, you're leaving everyone they've influenced. Suddenly, you're standing alone, questioning if you made the right choice. The silence can be deafening. The relationships you thought were real crumble, revealing how deeply their manipulation ran. Friends, relatives, even people you barely know seem to side with them, treating your decision to leave as betrayal. You're labeled ungrateful, difficult, or worse. And it stings, because a part of you hoped someone would understand, that someone would see the truth. But that's part of their plan. The isolation is a trap, designed to make you second-guess your freedom. They want you to feel so lonely that you crawl back, apologizing for choosing yourself. It's their last-ditch effort to pull you back into the cage. This stage is brutal, but it's also transformative. The solitude forces you to confront yourself, to rediscover who you are outside of their influence. It's a space where you start to heal, to learn that being alone doesn't have to mean being lonely. Over time, you'll attract the people who see you for who you really are, not the version your family painted. True freedom isn't just leaving the cage, it's building a new world, even if it starts with just you. Number 10. The cage was a mirror, what you learned about yourself in captivity. The cage they put you in wasn't just a trap, it was a mirror, reflecting parts of yourself you might have never discovered otherwise. At first, it seemed like a place of confinement. But as time passed, you realized that every painful moment was revealing something deeper. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the constant undermining, these weren't just attacks on you. They were lessons in disguise. You were learning even if you didn't know it at the time. Their manipulation taught you how to read people in a way that went beyond surface-level interactions. You learned to spot the hidden motives behind words and actions, to notice the tiny shifts in body language, the subtle lies wrapped in concern. It became second nature to decode the unspoken truths others tried to hide, and this skill became invaluable once you broke free. It's not just about recognizing the manipulations, it's about seeing through them before they even land. Their control over you gave you an understanding of your own limits and the importance of setting boundaries. You didn't just learn where to draw the line, you learned how to enforce it. The constant pressure to shrink yourself taught you what happens when you don't protect your space, your time, your energy. You learned the hard way that your peace isn't a bargaining chip, and that allowing people to push you past your limits is a surefire way to lose yourself. Most of all, the tactics they used to break you only served to make you stronger. Every time they tried to tear you down, you found a way to rebuild. Every insult, every tear, every emotional attack strengthened your resilience. They didn't realize it, but with each effort to control or hurt you, they were forging a version of you that was nearly indestructible. In the end, they didn't break you, they made you. Number 11, the final play. Why they'll pretend to change. When they finally see that you're not coming back, their panic turns into desperation. For so long, they had you convinced that you needed them to survive, that your independence was a dangerous choice. But now, you're thriving without them, and that threatens everything they've built. In a last-ditch attempt to regain control, they'll suddenly show remorse. You'll hear apologies, promises of change, and declarations of how they've seen the light. But don't be fooled. This isn't transformation, it's just a tactic. They're not genuinely changing, they're just rebranding the cage. The manipulation might become more subtle, the guilt trips more polished, but the core tactics will remain the same. They'll act as if they've had a revelation, as if their behavior was just a mistake, but the truth is they're only adjusting their methods to lure you back in. The love bomb they throw at you isn't a sign of growth, it's a desperate play to remind you of the comfort you once had, to make you believe that all the harm was just a misunderstanding. They'll promise you things will be different, that they've changed, but change takes time and real effort. What you're witnessing is just a brief flare of panic-induced remorse, not genuine transformation. They're scared of losing control and scared of the truth that you're better off without them. So when they start pushing for reconciliation, remember, the cage isn't being dismantled, it's just being redecorated. Their promises will eventually wear thin when you realize they're still trying to control you, just in a new way. True change would mean letting go of their need for power over you, but they're not there yet. And the moment you realize that, you'll see their desperation for what it truly is, a last-ditch effort to keep you trapped. Number 12. Your true power isn't escape, it's staying free. The real victory doesn't lie in the moment you escape. The ultimate power is in staying free. Leaving the cage was the first step, but it's what happens afterward that determines if you truly break free. The shady ones know how to exploit your guilt, your compassion, and your sense of duty. They count on your second-guessing, your hesitations, and your tendency to give them one more chance. They'll come with promises, apologies, and the hope that you'll slip back into the old patterns, because they know exactly how to pull you back in. But freedom isn't just about escaping the cage. It's about not returning to it. Every time they come knocking, trying to reel you in with emotional manipulation or hollow promises, the real test is how firmly you can stand your ground. Staying free means consistently choosing yourself, even when it feels like you're abandoning something or someone. It means breaking the cycle of guilt and responsibility that they've wrapped around you and recognizing that your well-being isn't negotiable. Yes, letting go of the familiar can be painful. It's difficult to turn your back on the people who shaped your life, even when they did so with toxic intentions. But staying free means acknowledging that their love or care wasn't unconditional. It was tied to control. And in choosing to let go, you're choosing to prioritize your own growth, your peace, and your truth over their attempts to pull you back into the chaos. The true power is in your refusal to return to the familiar, no matter how much they try to convince you that you need them. Your freedom is worth more than any emotional loophole they can throw at you. Breaking free from a toxic family is just the beginning. The real challenge lies in staying free. You've seen the cage for what it is, the manipulation, the control, the emotional traps, and now you're learning that true freedom isn't just about escaping. It's about refusing to be dragged back into their world of deceit. They may try to recapture you with apologies, guilt, or false promises of change, but the strength lies in your ability to see through the act and stand firm in your decision to choose yourself over their toxic narrative. You've already learned more than they could ever teach you. Their tactics, though painful, were the crucibles that shaped your resilience, your ability to read people, and your understanding of your own worth. Every wound they inflicted became a lesson, and every moment of control became an opportunity for you to reclaim your independence. Now, you know what it means to build boundaries, to recognize manipulation, and to step into your power without apology. Freedom is lonely at first, yes, but it's a necessary solitude that will ultimately lead you to the people and the life that truly honor your worth. The key isn't just leaving the toxic dynamic behind, it's staying out of it no matter how many times they try to bring you back. Your true strength is in choosing yourself every single time, even when it's difficult, even when it feels like you're letting go of everything you've ever known. The freedom you're fighting for isn't just a moment of escape. It's the power to remain true to yourself, regardless of the chains they try to throw around you. In the end, your story isn't one of victimhood. It's a story of survival, transformation, and most importantly, of reclaiming the power to choose your own path. And that in itself is the most extraordinary freedom of all. If this journey resonated with you and you're ready to take your freedom to the next level, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. By hitting that subscribe button, you're not just staying connected, you're choosing to stay empowered, informed, and surrounded by a community that gets it. Let's continue to break free, share wisdom, and support each other in our growth. So, hit subscribe now and join the movement. Your power is just beginning. Stay blessed.